Welcome to the Mindset Connection podcast, where we showcase everyday change makers who are doing extraordinary things in the field of mental health and wellness. Welcome. This is our 13th episode. We are your hosts, Jennifer Clearwaters and Cindy O'Connell, and we hope that you are finding our guests just as amazing and inspiring as we do, especially today, since we are welcoming our friend Angela Teeple back here to this spot. 1 year ago, almost exactly a year ago, Ange invited us to be on her podcast, Elevating Resilience. And we came on here and saw this beautiful studio, and we decided this is where we were going to start recording. So Ange gave us her time today, and she's back. So thank you, Ange, for coming back. And we're going to catch up with her and see what she's been doing in this past year. So give you a little bit of background on Ange. She is the founder of All-In Mental Fitness Coaching for Athletes. Ange is an author of the book called Rise Up, Soar Above Life Storms. She's a speaker, she's a podcast host, a former teacher, and a coach. And we are excited to see what the year has brought from you. So thank you for coming back to this little space.
This is awesome.
Ooh.
I remember last year when I had you guys on, I said my comment that it's like that look, Ma, I made it moment, because you guys were on my podcast.
Aww.
And it was so awesome to learn from you from last year. And then now, like, fast forward. First off, a year goes by so fast.
A year has gone by so fast.
It does go so fast.
Pretty
and,
insane.
You know, and I and Jen both firmly believe that women need to guide other women and just elevate other women. So so there's no question. So
100%.
Great to be
and
back
we were
here.
meant to meet you, and here we are a year
Here we
later.
are again.
Yeah.
Yep. Stayed in touch.
Yep.
Called you guys on SOS phone calls, like, what's going on with this? And it's exciting. All right.
It is exciting. All right. So tell us how you got involved in working with athletes, and what are your concerns regarding mental health and wellness in the athletes that you're talking with today?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, ever since just being an athlete, that, like, you know, you fall in love with that part of it. And then the help that I needed when I was an athlete wasn't there. So then I went and got my degree in nutrition, and then got out and was like, wait, I want to be a teacher and a coach because I want to be that person that I needed. And so the athlete was always where I navigated towards. I had to be reminded many times in my career that, Angie, you're also a teacher. You have to do lesson plans. I used to be like, no, I'm a coach.
Teacher stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm a coach, as I was watching film in my classroom and my science kids were, you know, on their tablets. But it was, athletes is my, you know, where I feel the most comfortable. I find that what you can learn in athletics is what you'll use for the rest of your life. So then when I left my teaching job, that was definitely going to be where I put my focus in on what I wanted to do next. So, yeah. And second part of the question, I'm just seeing a lot of kids that they do not know how to manage their time. They are very filled with pressure, overwhelmed. They are very high strung. I think that this nervous system research that I've been doing is going to benefit them a lot, because they do not know how to calm down, as you were talking about from my own personal space, the meditation part to calm down and see what is ahead of them. I mean, their nervous systems are constantly dysregulated, whether it's from what they're going through at home to the stress that's put on them at school, and then also social media, what has done to their brains. So it's like, so you definitely see athletes who, as soon as they're triggered, they can't calm down. And it could be the most simple thing as just dropping a pass, which is naturally you're going to do. And then it is a spiral of events of their self-talk, how they treat their teammates, how they shut down on their coach, and then the parent involvement. So I really feel that, like, this space of getting them, like, to be able to calm down, to use coping skills, is really important. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of.
Good.
Where the work needs to be done.
Absolutely. We're seeing the same
We're
thing,
seeing
whether
the
it's
same thing.
athletes or just everybody that's
humans.
just walking around.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that you said is finding space, like letting that space so that you can actually see what's happening, being present. Yeah. So, like, if I'm present on the field, then I recognize, okay, I made a mistake. What can I do? And Jen and I talk about this all the time, using your own name or using the pronoun you.
Mhm.
You can do better, Cindy.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
so
that's
yeah,
cool.
for
I like
sure.
that.
And it's anything. It
Oh, it's
doesn't matter
anything.
whether it's
Yeah.
dropping the pass or, making a mistake on a test
Yeah.
or just saying the wrong thing.
To think that I could have learned that back then and just went with it. Then maybe at 48, as I can't stay in the present moment, so those skills are what they need for the rest of their lives, because we're all looking back, we're looking forward. We have the anxiety is only caused because of what you're looking forward for. If you're
Yeah.
in the
Or
present moment, you don't feel that. So
100%. Or you're ruminating about the past, all your
Mhm.
mistakes. I made a
Yes.
mistake. I made a mistake.
I always say it's not a
on
mistake.
repeat.
It's not a mistake till you make it one.
Yep.
So you got to get past it and move on.
It's all here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So
What did you learn when you were a teacher and a coach, that you have applied to your actual work with your athletes?
I would
in your
definitely say
business?
that my biggest thing is, and it's connection. You have to be connected to an individual
So true.
in order to show any progress or for them to buy into what I'm saying. So as a teacher and a coach, the connection piece was huge.
And I'm sure that was like a natural piece for
Yes.
you.
Yeah, that
Just
was
knowing
always
who
what I
you
was good
are.
at.
Like you're so
Mhm.
social, and you have like you actually
Open.
care, and there's a genuine energy to you.
Yeah.
So I'm sure
Thank you.
that's how you got
Yeah.
your athletes to be like, who could I talk to? Her.
Yeah. So they
Mhm.
gravitated towards me. I gravitated towards them, and I wanted to learn about each kid. I wanted to be a part of their families. I wanted the whole picture, and then with that is like why I started the organization of All In Athletes, because it was like that all in of the coach, the parent, and the kid was so important, and that is
Mhm.
all through connection.
Yep.
So it's kind of what I learned the most from that space. Was definitely that was the most important.
Yeah. And then you mentioned like self-limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
how sometimes they spiral and they're feeling that way. What do you do to get someone when they're coming to you and you're seeing that they've spiraled or something's happening and they're doubting themselves or doubting their team or whatever? How do you correct them and get that push through?
Create the trust first. When you first try to tell someone to reframe their thought, to believe that they can do it, those are just words to them.
Mhm.
They have to trust you. They have to see it in action, and it's the constant reflection. Like they've got to reflect that is actually working, and it's like I say, that's why I call it mental fitness, because it is a constant thing every day. Just like if you want to be physically fit, you're doing those exercises every day, and those are your mental fitness exercises.
Are you finding that they're doing it?
They are. It has
Because
to be
consistency is the key.
consistency is important. That's why like going in and doing a 45-minute keynote is you're not going to see the same change without the follow-up.
Yep.
So that's my big thing with schools is like, how am I presenting this before I get there? What is this talk going to be about? And then how am I following up in order to create it? And that's what's good about All In, is because if I could go do the talk, and then the follow-up is that they become an ambassador for me. Even if I'm not working in their schools directly, they are still getting this constant communication. So I kind of like the way it's set up.
So
That's
you're
good.
talking about talking to the students. When
Yeah.
you say I'm doing a 45-minute presentation, so is it usually
Is it
the
an
whole student
assembly?
body?
Like, what
or
is
is
it?
it just the athletes, or is it a particular team?
Within the past year, I've dabbled in a lot. I've dabbled in the whole student body, particular teams, whole athletic departments, personal development spaces with like either just women or did a couple things corporate that I really liked too. I mean, that's a little easier because they want it,
Mhm.
a little bit more than the kids. But yeah,
Yeah.
in that space, when you're talking about athletes, it's been like specific teams. I was hired at Middletown as their mental fitness coach for the whole district. And that's been the most success I've seen so far because they know Ange is on staff. And so if I go work with the team, they have access to me. I come back the next week. I run a club in their school twice a month. So that's where you finally see the kids being like, oh, I get it.
Well,
This
it
is
makes
making
sense
sense.
because,
Yes.
we talked about this and, all the time that you'll go to something, you'll see something that you love, and then that person's not
Mhm.
accessible
Mm-hmm.
or you never see them again or you can't
Mhm.
access them. So they're probably thrilled that like they can talk to you. And then next week when something comes up, oh, you're still there.
Yeah, she's going to come
Mhm.
back.
She's gonna come
Because
back.
that was the big thing, having, Jen and I both worked in, low socioeconomic school districts that had a lot of different needs.
Yeah.
So everybody wanted to come in and fix
Yes.
us.
And there was a lot of turnover.
But what happened was they would come in, they'd say, oh, do this program, and there'd be no follow-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you're just kind of left and you don't really know the program. So
Yeah.
now you're supposed to be carrying on.
Yeah.
So what you're saying makes the most sense. And
Yeah.
that's the most difficult thing, I think, with schools is to get them to understand in order for this to be sustainable, I need to be there.
Yes.
Like when I go
Right.
in to do professional development with teachers, I mean, I just don't really like the space because the teachers are getting hammered from the administration. No one's happy in education right now. And then here comes Ange.
Well, let's not say no.
Yeah, no one. That's true. Okay. Most
It's very
people.
stressful.
It's
It is
very
stressful.
stressful. And
Let's
I
admit that
understand.
our teachers have a really hard job.
They do.
They do.
And
I
people
understand
don't
what they're going
appreciate
through.
that.
Yeah.
So here
Yeah.
I come in and they're like, oh, give them a dose of positive energy. And they're already like,
No.
no, that's not what
That's not what this is.
about. And so like, unless there's, well, what kind of program can you give us to do with them? They're not going to do a program. If they're at a place where they feel helpless.
Mhm.
Like it's way more than that. So I almost actually talk myself out of jobs. I'm like, I don't really think you want me to, don't spend that money on me. And they're like, well, what do you mean, Ange? And I'm like, it's like throwing it up in the wind. Like
Well, because
if
you can see that it's not going to get done.
exactly. If your
Yeah.
culture is that
It's
bad,
not going to get done.
like
Yeah.
I'm just a shot.
Yes, and that's what that was always the complaint about. They would bring in
One more thing.
in
Yes.
October.
Yeah.
They'd,
Another
we're
thing
going
that
to
we have
talk
to do.
about bullying, and we're going to bring in an assembly. I'd be no assemblies.
No.
Yeah.
No assemblies.
And if
Yeah.
you actually ask the kids, and we survey the students in some of the schools, they're like, please, I don't want an assembly. I don't want this.
Oh,
Yeah.
They don't
I
want
did
it.
an assembly at Manchester. It was a month ago. It was my first time in like the whole student body, 1,000 kids. It was awful, and the kids gave feedback, and it was the first time for me that I got negative feedback. And the
Mhm.
negative feedback wasn't necessarily towards me. There were things that they were spot on about because I was used to athletes being engaged in what I was saying, and then these kids were like, who are
Yeah.
you?
Why
I'm not
are we
famous.
here?
That little lady with this blue hat. And they were just like, please don't make us sit in assemblies anymore.
Yes.
And I
And
was
I
like
don't blame
reading the
them.
feedback and I was like, you're right on. I wish I could go back and tell you I agree,
Mhm.
And that's when it was another aha moment for me. It was like, why am I putting my energy trying to get in schools to do that if that's not the place
Well,
that
I
That's
love that
not
you're
the
saying that's not
method.
the place. And then also that the school is kind of checking the box. Well, I
That's-
had this.
That's all they're doing.
I
It's
had
just
an
checking the
assembly and I
box.
had this lady come in and talk about mental fitness. Oh, and it didn't work. As
And
opposed for you saying, where am I going to go where the need is
Mhm.
there and the message is going to get
Yeah.
through?
I'm
instead
going
of
to
just
cover
checking a
myself for
box.
social emotional learning.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That
Yeah.
we did something,
Yeah.
and it
That
was
breaks
not.
my heart.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've even reached out and said, hey, I'm going to come back
Right.
and
so I
for
want to do
free
this again. Yeah.
for the rest of the year for free and do this
Mhm.
because I want to see what I can get out of that.
Sustainable.
But some
And
places
that's the
aren't
word.
ready. Like it
They're
sounds
not
like what
ready,
they tried
yeah.
to put in where you went with this 1,000-person assembly, they weren't ready.
No.
And it was more like, we'll just put it in and say,
Yeah.
we did it. But
Yeah.
they weren't
Yeah,
ready
it was
for you.
It was kind of disappointing, but it's also like
But that's a learning
I-
lesson
I
for you
learned-
too.
I needed to learn. I hadn't
Yes.
learned it
Yes.
since I started this, I guess like a year and a half ago, so it was good for me. It
You
was a
know,
good-
Ange, and
Good.
I really appreciate that because I don't think people do enough self-reflection.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Well, we're always looking for the
whenever
good- the
Jen and
good
I present
feedback.
somewhere, or I want to know,
Me too.
what do you like? Whether they're going to do an evaluation or not, we're going to do an
Mhm. Yeah.
evaluation because we want to know what you think. What else could we have done better? I can
Mhm.
always do something better.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I want to grow. I don't
Yeah.
want to just stay
Yeah.
stagnant. So,
Yeah.
And at the
good for
same
you.
time, honestly, Cindy and I just talked about this on the way here, and that we were saying sometimes and in some places where you go, it's not going to matter what you do or say. You
Yeah.
could have the most perfect presentation, and there are going to be people that aren't ready to receive what you have to say,
Mhm.
and they're not going to get it.
No.
And they're not going to it doesn't matter. That it
Mm-mm.
doesn't matter what you say or do. They're just not going to be
Yeah.
receptive.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that is not necessarily a fault of you.
Yeah.
So
That's a lot of self-talk
Yeah.
when that happened.
well, and
So-
that's when you have to say, Ange,
Yeah.
Ange, did you do the best you could?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how would you change this?
And what
You know,
went
and again,
well?
so it's, you know, displacing
Yeah.
yourself. So
Yeah.
it's almost like your best friend is,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
going through this with you,
Yeah,
you know.
sure.
So, all right. So we're still on the same subject, but so
Mhm.
like talk to me about what a typical session would be like. So pretend that Jen and I are your athletes
Right,
that you're
athlete
working
clients.
with. Yes.
Okay.
So
give
give
like a
us
one-on-one.
Well, is that what you do?
Well,
Do
do
you
you
work
ever
with
do
your
one-on-one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
have
do?
one-on-ones.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so what
like,
would it
do
look
you
like?
do, you know,
I do
one-on-two?
one-on-one workshop. Yeah, I do. I have a little group coaching.
Yeah, little group coaching. So
Um,
what would that look like?
I would say the first couple times is just getting to know each other and
Mhm.
really learning their like what makes them tick. Like you can kind of tell, as you guys know, like right away, like what's holding them back, their comments that they make, what kind of confidence that they have moving forward, what are their goals. Are their parents making them do this? Do they even want to play sports later on? So
Great
the bigger issue,
questions.
right?
Yeah.
So we kind of talk about that, get an idea. And then I kind of dive in to see, because a lot of times a parent will say to me, well, this will be better for them because they don't want to go to counseling. And that's
Of
what they'll
course.
Oh,
say.
so you're
Right.
the
So you're
now
the
you're a
therapist.
therapist.
I'm not the you know, like, oh, I go to a therapist. I go to Ange and she's a mental fitness coach. But then,
Yes.
as you know, the reason why they have the pressure and the anxiety and the low self-esteem is because of something that they've gone through, right? So it's hard once I make that distinguishing fact that, okay, maybe they need a little bit more, then we start our assignments. And then I see how much are they getting the assignments done, like the drills I call them. And
So
then,
give us an example
like,
of an assignment.
so an assignment would be their self-reflection, like a checklist of like one habit you're gonna change each week, one small habit you're gonna change each week.
Okay.
And then it's because a lot of that is they are just reacting to what's happening to them.
Yep.
You know, instead of like really being focused on these,
Mhm.
you know, kind of standards that they set. And so that, and then the reflection at the end of the week will be like they fill something out and I have this really cool, awesome platform that I just started a couple months ago called Bubble Up, and they go into their Bubble Up folder and they put it in there. I read it. I give them comments.
So it's online, so
It's
you can go
online.
back, and it's
Yeah.
almost like, so here she is complaining about being a teacher. Sorry, I have to say
I
this.
know.
But- and you have your lesson
And
plans.
She's a teacher again.
Yes.
Yeah,
She's got a
it's-
lesson plan. She
yeah.
has assignments that she's not grading, but
Yeah.
offering suggestions.
But I like
But
this
I
that
also-
you
Oh, I
explain
love
this
it.
because I can see people who don't know, like,
Mhm.
and maybe don't know about you. What's the difference between you and like a
Mhm.
recruiter or
Yeah.
someone who's assigned to students to try to help them get placed
A
in
mentor.
or in a college program?
Yeah.
But you sound like you're a lot different than that.
Oh yeah. I'm not like that stuff is like, and then them having conversations with their parents is a lot of what we talk about. And then I do a session with a parent a month to talk to them about like what has been going on. And then I also get the kid and the parent offer me the suggestion to go to their coach. So then I will call their coach and be like, I'm working with this young girl or a young boy, and this is what we're talking about. Because if they bring up something that I think the coach needs to hear to help them excel, I just believe that the coach needs to hear it.
And how is that received? I'm curious to know.
So far I've been pretty lucky, just because, as you know, when you start this out, like it is word of mouth. So a lot of people already know
They've
me.
heard your
They already
heard
know
me.
you.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But how will that work in the future? I have found that coaches are very like this with me.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like you just have to go in and you have to say it. I'm an advocate for this kid, and this kid is taking the next step. And a lot of times though, it's to talk to the kid when the kid is like judging their coach. I need to get the coach's side because they're never the same.
No.
So then I can actually bridge the gap for the coach. So I usually lead in with that conversation. Hey, listen, this kid's taking it this way. I get what you're trying to say, but let me bridge the gap for you.
perfect.
And then it
Yeah,
works.
and you
Yeah.
hope they're receptive
Yeah.
because like,
Yeah.
if you have somebody that's really having an issue or
Oh,
struggling
yeah.
with a coach, you hope that they're not going to be like this
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Like they would welcome, like, let
Yeah.
me hear what's going on so I
Yeah.
can solve the problem.
It's an all-in approach.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so give us an idea. Not that I want to know your fees, but
Mhm.
so like you have like a small group or one-on-one.
Yeah.
So there's a fee for this is what's going to be included,
Yeah.
and this is what's going to happen, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So it's
All
like
right.
twice a month. There's hours for texting.
Yeah.
I reach out on game days, and then it's one parent meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is all of this in the meetings in person, or are
Usually
they Zoom?
once a month it will be in person, but it depends on the kid's schedule. When you're in season, it's really hard to get them to do that.
Yeah.
And also like going to a person's house, sometimes that's kind of awkward, you know?
Yes.
So like that's kind of like I'm kind of trying to get into like office space and stuff like that because I really do enjoy that part the most. You like I said, like the kind of pivoted away from the keynote in the schools. This is a nice
Exactly.
pivot.
Well, this is where you know that you're making more of a difference. You're getting
100%.
more.
Yeah.
And then how long do athletes typically stay with you?
It's been I've
Like,
had them.
Are they mostly because with the recruiters kind of hit up kids in like early high school ish, but then when they're gone, they're gone. So like when are people coming to really see you?
I would say like
Is it mostly
junior
high
year.
school?
It's high school.
It's high school.
Yeah. I'm going to tap into the high school space because talking to college athletes, talking to college coaches, they need to be ready for what they're up against. And, it's easier for a college athlete to want, they have it in their systems already, performance coaches and all of that. High school athletes don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So I find that the high school space is just so untapped right now. It really is.
They need you.
So, as you're talking though, I'm thinking to myself, you're not seeing this athlete till they're a junior. They've already formed all these so-called bad habits
Yeah.
and self-limiting beliefs. What if you move down to the junior high? Like we had this conversation yesterday with Chip Craig from Interfaith Neighbors about, nursery school. I mean, that's where it starts.
It does.
So
6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they don't put a lot of funding into something that I would be doing to go just talk to athletes.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
because that's really where it starts.
So what I've actually tapped into right now is businesses sponsoring me to go into the schools as part of them getting the exposure that they care about this stuff. There are so many boutique gyms in this area and mental health spaces, not necessarily mental health spaces, but like gyms and wellness centers that are willing to do it. And then the company Liquid Sports that I'm working for, he's like, I'm going to sponsor you the whole month of May to go to high schools to do this talk for their athletic departments. I will pay you X amount of dollars and you will do a tour in May and it will be free of charge to every single high school.
Great.
Wow.
And then
Congratulations. That's enormous.
Yeah, I've asked a couple local businesses to sponsor it as well and do giveaways for the kids and they're in. And I was like, I got to be creative because I need to get into these spaces and I'm not looking to make a lot of money, but like just to be able to do it that way, I think is cool. Because
you have to promoting awareness. That's really the most important
and
thing.
you need to be paid. It's a lot of effort to
Yeah.
come up
Yeah,
with.
it is. It's exhausting.
I'm going into this school that's a high socioeconomic school versus. You know what I mean? Like it's a different approach.
Well, and also
every
as a business
time.
owner, you have to value your time. Because if you don't value your time, no one else will value it either.
Yeah.
So
Very
you
true.
can't say yes. And Cindy and I too. How many free things have we done in our careers?
Yes.
A million.
And they're truly free.
And they're truly free. Really.
Nobody's sponsoring us.
Nobody sponsored us. We're doing it all for free. But at some point, when you are a business owner, you have to say like, what I have to offer has value.
Yeah.
And I can't do it for free.
No.
So, and you shouldn't.
No. But the bottom line is like when I see how well it works, like I did a Women in Sports Day and these 150 girls, there was 3 chosen from every school and it was incredible. Like it was awesome. But it was like, that's because those kids came, those athletic directors sat in the stands and heard it. And they know that that's what the kids need. But they're like, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. So
And where did you do that?
I did it at Randy High School.
Alrighty.
Oh, okay.
It was a cool event.
Nice.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? I still got it. I'm going to still find a way to go after it for everybody because it also is a space where then I make the connections with the kids and maybe they'll use me, to take it the next
Privately.
level, privately.
And-
And then you get exposure in so many other ways.
That's right.
That
And you do little
everything-
bits at a time and
little
then
bits at a time.
reflect and go,
Yeah.
where can I go
Yeah.
next?
So the middle schools is really where I would like to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
it's just that people don't see
No.
yet their child goes to high school, and then they're like, "Oh my
Oh my
gosh,
God, what do we do?"
My child
Yeah.
is a nervous wreck.
Mm.
Everything is a calamity,"
Yeah.
instead of just something that
Yeah.
happened.
The club teams and the camps. I'm going to start in April to get into
That's
those.
a good idea.
Offer some, like those parents pay thousands and thousands of dollars. If
Oh,
you're not
she
giving those
knows.
kids,
You know,
if you're
I
not
did it for
yeah,
years.
if you're not
It's a
giving
lot.
those
I did
kids
too.
any mental,
Yeah.
I don't know. As
They're
a
not.
parent, I would expect that should be
But
happening.
it's not at all. That's just not part of the package.
No,
fee.
Yeah,
it's
it
just
should
you're
change.
only paying. You're paying
to
for
play.
practice
You're paying
Yeah.
to play.
and
That's
to
it.
play,
That's
Yep.
nuts. to
and
play.
nothing else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Well,
Wow.
let's switch topics
Let's
and
go.
let's talk about your book.
Yeah.
So when we were on your podcast, our book had just come out, and
Mm-hmm.
you had said like your book was ready and it had just come out, and I read it and Cindy read it, and we want to know, maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit about the book, how you got it done
Mhm.
while being a business owner, and like what were your sources of inspiration?
I would say it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Getting it done was something that I did, I think, for my own healing. And like everybody says to me, I wanted more when anybody reads it. So the
That's
hardest,
what I said to
yeah,
you.
you did. A lot of people, and I think the hardest thing was figuring out how to tell my story without telling it, because I didn't want to offend the people that were part of it.
Mhm.
So that was hard for me. So I wish I did self-publish it. So I do wish I'm now working with a publisher that is helping me as far as business and my next steps with a book. And she said to me that would have been a positive to having a publisher, because she would have been able to walk me through what that looks like.
Mhm.
I did it all on my own,
But
but
when
it's
you're starting out,
definitely-
you don't know.
I don't know.
You don't
any-
know.
Yeah.
We didn't
So
know
that was
either.
like another learning journey that I did it. I got it done. I can say I did it, but to do it right again, that was like even getting it out so soon, which I don't know if I was ready for everything that was exposed in it in my
Yeah.
healing journey.
Yeah.
So that was, a whole other,
Well, it's one thing to write it for yourself
Yeah.
to heal, but then when you put it out, it's like you have to experience it all over again.
all over again.
Yeah.
Over and,
Exactly.
then
And now you
people
have
talk to you.
reactions from people
Yeah.
that are talked about in the book, and
And then the
then
and
and then you
others,
relieve it.
and
yeah.
others.
And others.
And,
People asking questions.
We
yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
have that experience
No.
because our book was not a personal book.
Yes.
It was more of a wellness
Mhm.
book. So
Yeah.
that
And we
there's
did
a
have the
difference.
guidance of a publisher and an
Or an
editor
editor.
who would say, like, you have to fix this. This
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense, or like, the general public is going to understand this.
Yeah.
Revise it, redo
Yeah.
it. So we had a lot of time to
Support.
edit, and a lot of support along
Yeah.
the way.
And what's your next book going to be on?
So it's like a toss up. I say that I invented a word.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what is
like-
it?
So we have resiliency, but I
Uh-huh.
believe in resiliency, how you rise up after the storm, or so to say, what you're going through in life, because everyone uses this term. You're just bouncing back. I think of a rubber band, and the rubber band just bounces back to the way it already was. And you
Mhm.
can't do that. You've got to be able to bounce back and grow through every
Yes, you have to
experience, right?
expand.
So this whole resiliency theory is on my mind. But then I also have this space of like, I am obsessed with old people and young people going through this life journey. And I feel like there's this like kind of fable I have in me to write about 4 friends that all have different upbringings that go through life together. And then they tell the journey from older. It's kind of like, there's shows out there that are very similar to it, but I feel like what I am seeing from kids, and then when I talk to old people, what they learned, I wish that there was like a big lesson out there in a
course,
book. So I
yes.
don't know, I'm
Yeah.
tossing it up. I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
enjoy
What do you consider old?
Yeah, yeah.
on their deathbed, like
Oh, on their
80s,
deathbed.
yeah,
People
Okay,
looking back
okay,
and
80s.
reflecting.
in 90s, no, like people looking back, reflecting, and just being like, I wish I
Yeah.
knew this,
Yeah.
kind of thing. I think it's really, I don't know if you'll listen. I mean, we all do say that, right?
And there are
You know?
studies that are done on people at the end of their lives, and they ask them, like, what are your biggest
Yeah.
regrets and what do you wish that you did? And most of
Well,
the time
there's
they
a
talk about
longitudinal study
yes, a big study, the
from
happiness
Harvard,
study.
the happiness.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you should
Robert-
definitely
yeah.
get
Robert
that book.
difficulty.
if you
And
haven't.
also, like,
It's in our book.
all these kids that are being raised differently than the next.
Yeah.
You spoke about socioeconomic.
Yeah.
The bottom line is what makes a kid deemed successful is how they've gotten through their trials and tribulations. And it doesn't matter what circumstances your parents gave you or the means. It's all really about how you handled what you went through.
Right.
And so I think that's a big message to get out there also is you might come from nothing, but you can be successful.
Oh,
And
no
yes.
question.
you can come from everything and not be successful. So
Because
that's part of the fable, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, we talked about this again from
Mhm.
yesterday's
Yeah.
example with Chip is that, you know, it doesn't matter where you come from, but everyone has issues and everyone has problems and no one is exempt.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what
That's what life
background you
is.
have. That's
Yeah.
life.
Life is about
Yeah.
rising
You could have all
above.
the money in the
Yeah.
world and you still
Mhm.
are going to have problems, you know,
Yeah.
and you could still have, you could have a very hard life and you're still going to have problems.
Well, that's a funny, I'm going to say this one last comment about my book is for a long time, like, I think I was, you know, blaming my parents and blaming what happened to me. And then when that book came out, it was like, yeah, this is what happened to me. But really, it was time for me to figure out the structure, figure out my healing, figure out what I was going through in order to take this next step. So that was like another aha moment for me. It was like, okay, like that's out there. This is all out there. Now, Ange, you're still taking 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. Are you even healing yet? And that
because
was
you're still blaming.
Big,
You're creating your own prison.
100%.
But getting it out is step one.
Yeah.
And we know this from therapy, why journaling is so important
Yes.
and writing is so important.
Yes.
But then it's like, then the second part is the release,
Yeah.
you know, and then what are you going to do to rise
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
and move forward?
I kept thinking I was healed. And
Well,
I was
because
wrong.
because probably the initial writing
Yeah.
of it down is healing, and
Yeah.
it's not in here anymore. It's not in your head. It's out, and so
Yeah.
most people then go, oh,
Yeah.
that little like feeling of freedom.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh wait, there's still an impact.
Yeah,
You have to
that's-
still deal with it.
It's interesting because as we sit here a year later, I see a huge difference in you.
Yes,
A
a
huge
calm,
difference.
calm.
Yeah, I'm
energy.
calm.
Yes.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
and
Big difference.
a sense of a vision, more of a vision. I feel like when you were here the last time, and if I may say this, you were kind of like all over, but
yeah.
now there's that vision, and
Mm.
you're on that yellow brick road
Yeah.
for sure.
You've had a year of
for sure.
reflection.
You
A
have.
year. Yeah.
You
So-
have.
and you've had a year of setbacks of going like just like that
Mhm.
that
Yeah, the
assembly
1,000
that like
yeah.
whoa that
As
didn't
soon
work
as you
for
said
me.
that, I was like, oh,
Yeah, because
no.
we've been there. We've been there, and we you know we go, oh God, here we go.
It was something
We did not
else.
sign
Oh,
up for
yeah,
this.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And you're
said one
standing there and
class.
you're going, in times like that, I always say to Jen, it's one person.
That's it.
If I
One
can reach one
person.
person,
Yeah.
and I guarantee you that there was at least
I
one
did.
person
Yep.
out there that said, wow.
Her name was Gigi.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
she-
there you
Yes,
go.
so there you go. Go,
See,
Gigi.
and that's all it is.
and
Yeah.
you're going to have those people too that even didn't come up to you, but still
Yeah.
felt and understood what you
Mhm.
said, but didn't have the courage to approach you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and
Mhm.
that's how you have to. So even if it was a complete disaster, one thing, but then
Yeah.
you know that like, okay, there are people who love those 1,000-person
Yeah.
talks, and you go, well, that's not where I'm going to be most effective.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's it.
Yeah.
So, I have a different question, but what's a takeaway that you could give our listeners? We started to ask this question because, actually, it's because of my son. He said, I feel like you should be asking people, what's the takeaway? Because not
What do you want people to
everybody.
know?
What do you want people to know? Because not people that will listen are like, well, I don't have a kid that's an athlete. I was never an athlete, but
Mhm.
there is a universal message.
Yeah, the biggest universal message for me that I want people to know is like, I mean, I guess it comes down to just the name of the company that I go back to is Being All In and how that's changed for me. And I think Being All In is truly about like all in for yourself and your growth and being patient with that process, all in for your relationships. I mean, without connection, you have nothing. And I think that last part is resilience, you know, that whole resilience concept here is that you are, you know, if you have connection and you care about yourself, you can get through anything. And like changing your focus is the last part. Like you change your focus, like what are you focusing on? And I think for the past year I've learned that my focus was what everybody else wanted me to do, what I thought I could only do because of my self-limiting beliefs, what I thought would make it. And now my focus is on like truly what my heart center is telling me to do and where I fit in without worrying about money, without worrying about things that I can't control. It's just literally making a difference every day, one day at a time.
Yeah. And knowing
Beautifully
where, I
said.
love that you said, like finding out where I belong,
Mhm.
because we are not supposed to be everywhere.
No.
And everyone has a niche and everyone
Mhm.
has a strength and
Mhm.
everyone has that sweet spot of like
Yeah.
where we shine.
Yeah.
And it's different.
Yeah.
And everyone is unique.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there is room in this world for all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
For all of us
It doesn't
doing
have to
this
be such a
work.
competition.
Yeah,
100%.
it's not. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way I see it. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, and I know that you
Yeah.
do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
you
yeah.
have
And
to
letting go
collaborate.
of what's not for you. So
Yeah.
like if somebody else is going to book all those assemblies, good
Go
for
ahead.
you.
Yeah.
I still
You
have
can
It's
keep
okay.
the whatever they were going to pay you.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's not worth it. And it's not all
It's
about
not.
money. And I love that you
It
say
isn't.
that too, because
Yeah.
sometimes, especially business owners, and especially a single business
Yeah.
owner, you get focused on, oh my God, I have to make this money. So
Mhm.
let me make this money doing whatever I can. But then there's no joy in what you're doing.
No.
And
if
it
you-
shows.
Yeah,
It totally
does. It definitely shows.
I mean, it's a lot of breakdowns, a lot of debt, a lot of breakdowns. And it's like, well, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to just keep going forward.
Yeah.
I'm a big Christian. So like my faith has definitely, I've needed my faith to get me through a lot of what I've gone through. So it's definitely like, okay, one thing at a time, and then more things open up. And also like being busy doesn't mean I'm being productive as well.
That's true.
Stepping back
Mhm.
and letting go is a lot of what I've needed to do, and say, all right, well, like I'm the type of person that's like, if I send 100 emails, then at least one will respond. So let me stress myself out and send 100 emails with no heart behind it.
Yeah.
So now if I send 5 a week and truly care about who I'm sending it to, it matters so much more now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
but
it's
I had to go on
genuine.
that journey.
And
Yeah.
the people receiving the emails can tell.
Can
You can
tell.
tell when
Oh,
you get
yeah.
something that was just pumped out.
Yeah, I'm done with that.
Yep.
I'm done with that too.
Yeah. There's a more grounded energy to you. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's
Well, then you're
really
going to
good.
appreciate this because I just heard this on Oprah's Soul podcast with Father Rundal.
yeah.
Oh, I love
I'm
him.
not.
I
Yeah,
heard it.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know
Did
what
you-
you're going to say.
What I'm
but-
going to say is that in the Bible, not that I've read the Bible, but in the Bible, this is for everyone. There is 365 times it's written, "Fear not."
Mhm.
365 times.
I just spent 4 days in Colorado at a Christian women's retreat, and that's what we spoke about.
Oh my gosh!
Okay.
How crazy is
Mhm.
that?
Fear
Well,
not, because
fear
fear,
not.
fear is going to hold you back.
It is. And what am I fearing?
Yep.
It's all it all works out.
Yeah.
And you've already
Yeah.
made it through
Mhm.
100% of your bad days.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So self-care.
yes. Okay. So, what are you doing for you? A year later, what are you doing to take care of yourself?
I would
She
say
just went on this retreat.
Yeah, I went on this
Yes, you went on
retreat.
a
I definitely
retreat.
prioritize that. I prioritize being more disciplined with my time. I'm not an expert at it yet, but I definitely see a difference in me.
There's no such thing as experts.
Mm-mm.
No.
No experts.
Thank you. I love how you guys
Mhm.
jump on me with that. I work out, but not stress myself out. Again, I'm the type of person
Yeah.
that if I'm going to go to the gym, I got to go to the gym 7 days a week, 2 hours a day.
Yep.
Now it's, if I get there, I get there. If I don't, I don't. So that's helpful. Definitely my diet. I definitely choose that self-care. And sun. I just make it now. I have to get out there. This winter killed me.
A lot of people felt that.
Mhm.
I
A lot
felt
of
so
people
now
felt
I'm
that
gonna
too.
probably, like I said to my husband,
gotta get
next
sunshine.
year I gotta get some. I've definitely been, so definitely. And my nephew, I have a 3-year-old nephew who like
Mhm.
I have to make time for, but on my schedule and what I want to do with him. You
Good.
know?
I
Yeah,
love it.
Great.
So
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it.
So, how do you view failure?
failure is just a chance to get better. Everybody fails.
Love it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What are your 3 most important strengths? Don't overthink it. Boom them out.
Yep.
My personality, my ability to laugh at things, and I would say the last one is I care deeply for people.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
So, what's going well in your life? I mean, you've talked the whole time about what's going well in your life, but what's really going well in your life?
Finding peace I needed is going very
Mhm.
well. Taking slower steps. I think the business is going in a better direction. I still have a lot of balls in the air, but I'm seeing that through my connections and the genuine, passion I have for people, things are falling into place where they may. And I do believe that when you grow a business, it's 5 to 10 years. And this has probably been, this has probably been a dedicated, after all the healing and everything that I'll still continue to be on, but has been in 9 months. So I'm learning to say, all right, like, I start to see All In different places. People are starting to understand it more. I'm going to push out more of actually what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I think that's going really well. My marriage is going really well. My relationships are, I have a few people in my tribe. I have the right ones.
And that's very important.
That's important.
Connection is hugely important.
And, yeah.
So, the first thing you said was that the peace, that's the difference.
Yes.
You're at peace right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the big difference that I say. Sorry, I just can't help myself because
love it.
when you notice these things, it's like
you
all
can feel
over you.
it.
We
Feel
can
it.
feel it. Like I'm definitely a feel your energy person.
Yeah.
So is Jen. So we always ask these questions at the end of every episode.
Let's do it.
So is there something you want to change?
It's just a yes or no.
Something you want to change.
You want to change in life.
Yes.
Okay. What's holding you back?
Oh, well, they're dead. I want them to come back to life.
Well, we know a medium we can introduce you
Yes,
to.
we can introduce you to
We're
a very
going
good
to
medium.
we're gonna have her on the podcast.
What is there one thing I want
Jenna
to
Rose.
change?
No, is there something you want to change, and then what's holding you back?
Yes, there is. And what's holding me back is still being afraid not to have all the balls in the air.
So no
Fear
fear.
not.
Fear not.
Fear not.
Yeah.
And what is one thing you can do to move yourself forward?
Continue to just know it's not going to be perfect and just accept myself for who I am and move it forward. Like
I love it.
Yeah. Like running this event was out of my comfort zone, but I felt I'd be good at running events because I care about the details. I care about people's experiences. And I love bringing people together because that ripple effect happens more often when you have this group of people. And so it's not perfect, but we did it. And, I'm still figuring out what the centerpieces are, and it's in 3 days, but I just went for it. And I've learned so much.
Good for you.
Yes,
I really admire you for taking that big step. That was a big step. Big step.
Well, before we end, Ange, tell our listeners where they can find you, learn more about you. Where can they get your book? Like, how can we reach out?
You can definitely, I have 2 social medias, like at All In. Ange is more like this human approach to being all in and my life. And then at All In Athletes is the athlete platform. And then the website is www.iamallin.org. So that kind of shows the workshops, the keynotes, the services that I have and the organization, and the book is on there. And then the merchandise is on there where we, sell our famous sayings and stuff like that. So,
okay. And what about the podcast?
The podcast is Going All In, and it's through the Liquid Sports Company.
Okay, so you changed the name from last year.
They made me change the name.
Okay.
So that's a work in progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they'll be out.
And who do you basically have on your pod? What's your focus on the podcast?
I would say people in the mental health space, athletes, coaches, mentors. So that's kind of the direction we're going. And then a friend of mine just asked me to be on his podcast, like the Val and Ann show. He's this awesome.
Oh,
yeah. So he's gonna take care of all of that, and he just wants my energy because his energy is different, and we are really good friends, balance each other out. He's like this 6'5" ex-NFL football player. Yeah, strong black man.
You have
He's
him on
awesome.
your podcast.
Yeah,
Val. Yes, I listened
Val
to his
and I
episode.
are really good friends, and he wants to go that direction. So
Is that going to be here? Is that here?
No, I'm not sure what we're going to do yet. He's trying to make his own studio for it.
So you're doing a lot, Anne.
Yes, you
Yes.
are. A lot of balls in the air.
Yep. Okay, so we are wrapping up another episode. So thank you for listening, and we will be on again with another extraordinary person doing great things in mental health and wellness space. And if you want to learn more about Cindy or about me, our websites are mine is www.mindsetnj.com. Cindy's is www.mindfulnessconnection.com. We are both on social media. Our podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. We have a TikTok channel at Mindset Connection Pod. And our book, The Elevation Principles, is out on Amazon. We do have an audiobook version that will be out sometime this year. So that's it. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you, Ange, so much.
Loved
it was really inspiring.
Awesome. Say your last
So I want everybody to remember to pause, breathe, and then respond instead of reacting. And also do hard things.
Yes.
Thank you
Discipline
so
in doing
much.
hard things.
Thank
Thank
you.
All right.
you.